to UNCAGED, the show that celebrates thought leadership from today's top business leaders. The program provides a voice to amazing executives from around the globe who are shaping the world that we live in today and mapping what our future looks like tomorrow. Today we have Jordan Bartlet on the show. Hi, Jordan.
Hey, Ben, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It's great to have you on the show. Jordan is the co-founder and I think probably has the best title that anyone could have. He is the Director of Good at Doing Good Works, which is a certified B Corporation that provides resources and opportunities for young people aging out of foster care. We'll get more into what Doing Good Works is working on these days. But before we get there, Jordan, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to doing what you're doing now.
Perfect. Yeah. So I was born and raised in Orlando, Florida, and I was adopted when I was young. So one of my first memories is actually being in the courtroom and getting the name change and all of that. So I had two amazing parents that adopted me. So I went to school. I thought I was going to play baseball, got hurt in college. So when I graduated, actually, when I was in college, I had a chance encounter with someone who was actually a biological sibling. So I didn't know anything about, didn't even know she existed. She just walked up to me one day and said, "Hey, I'm your sister." So that left an impression. About a year or two later, Facebook became a thing, which ages me a little bit, but she reached out to me again on Facebook and I started to look at her background. And she had been in and out of the foster care system, had overcome addiction, had been incarcerated. So I saw that there are two very different paths. But that was kind of it. I was just was interesting to know. So when I graduated, I got into the insurance industry. So I worked for an insurance agency in Florida. They flew me out to work in an audit position in Phoenix, and then I ended up here in Orange County, California. Didn't love insurance. It paid the bills. Like a lot of millennials, I had this idea of doing something more meaningful.
It's hard to love insurance.
Yeah,
but we all need it. We all need it, right?
Yes, it is a recession-proof industry for sure. So and you learn a lot as well. It taught me how to work hard, and it is a really good industry to get a good foundation in for sure.
Yeah.
But wanted to do something a little different. So started thinking about Stephanie, who is that sister, learning more about the foster care system and her path. And it was more common than it should be. And there's some really bad outcomes that had been really bad for a long time. It didn't seem to be changing. So in February of 2014, I just told my boss, I'm going to quit. I'm going to go work with kids in the system. Had no idea what that meant, didn't have a plan. So I got to know all the nonprofits here in Orange County in Southern California and some amazing people doing really cool things. I just didn't know how to write a grant or ask for donations. And, that's a skill set you need if you work for a nonprofit. So one of the nonprofits said, there's this other guy who's saying the same things as you and has a similar background. Why don't you talk to him? So I met Scott Henderson, who's the other co-founder. And we met over lunch one day and shared our common goal of changing outcomes for young people aging out. And, just said, let's sell some stuff and we can create a business where, we manage the profits and we hire who we want to hire. And we tried a few different things. We tried to sell coffee, tried to sell iPhone cases. We tried a staffing company. Those just didn't work. And then we started knocking on doors saying, who prints your t-shirts? And that turned into this $24 billion industry of promotional products where everybody from a mom and pop shop to, the biggest corporations in the world, we buy stuff with their logo on it. So we knew if we could, make a dent in that industry, it created a lot of jobs, a lot of connections, and a lot of the things that are needed to really change outcomes for those young people that we wanted to work with.
That's great. So Jordan, Doing Good Works, you have so tell us a little bit more about that. Tell us about the business, and you guys are printing promotional items. How does that function with the individuals that are aging out of foster care?
Yeah, so we are a distributor in the promotional product industry. So if you need your business cards printed, t-shirts printed with your logo on it, signs, banners, all of those things, that's what we do. And we've got really good printers all over the country that we work with. And then within that business model, we have what's called a 10-20-30 model. So 10% of our corporate profits always go back to supporting young people in care. So that could be, paying for an internship. It could be housing costs, could be transportation costs. It's kind of filling in the gaps that are there now. 20% of our time as employees. Everybody in the company has 1 day a week allotted to mentoring. So that could be mentoring interns or outside of the organization as well. So I'm a court-appointed special advocate. So I've got a young man who's in foster care, and I go to court on his behalf, and some of those things take me out of work for the day. So we have that built in. And then 30% of all of our hiring comes from young people that have been impacted by foster care. So every pen we sell, every business card we sell kind of feeds that 10, 20, 30 model. And the bigger we get, the more impact we can have.
That's great. I like that, the 10, 20, 30 model. And I think that certainly every company right now needs to be thinking about how to really reinvent themselves, I would say, to be more socially conscious. This is a really socially conscious business model, and certainly something that's making a huge impact on society today. But tell me a little bit about over the last year, like how did the pandemic impact things, and how were you guys able to evolve with that?
Obviously had a really big impact with promotional products. A lot of that depends on being in person and handing out swag to people at shows and things like that.
Yeah.
So it was difficult. One of the things, working with young people in care, it pushed us to learn a lot more about trauma and how trauma impacts, humans and thought process and behaviors and things like that.
Yeah.
So we had kind of started that path prior to the pandemic. And all of our employees are trauma informed, and we've gone through training to kind of understand how trauma impacts the brain, and learn that it's not a foster care thing. Trauma impacts everybody at some level.
Yeah.
So when the pandemic hit, I think we were ready for that, because the pandemic is probably the first traumatic event that the entire world has felt at one time.
Yeah.
So our employees were ready for it.
Yeah.
And we were ready for it as a business. So we had some customers that were in the healthcare space. So we were able to source some PPE for them at the very beginning of the pandemic. And then about August or September, we pivoted again and started to do fulfillment out of our office. So instead of sending 10,000 shirts to one location, we would bring in a bunch of products, put them into individual packages, and ship them out to remote employees or remote students, whoever kind of our target audience was. So if we have a large customer that now has to send all of their employees home, these packages were a way to keep them engaged. And it was a huge change for us, but we were able to make that pivot as well, and actually created a lot of jobs for our population in the warehouse. So that was kind of cool as well. So
That's great.
we were very fortunate to grow last year, and kind of continuing that growth in 2021. But I think our kind of focus on understanding trauma really helped our team prepare for that really traumatic event.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. And I do think that the business structure that you've laid out for doing good works is in some ways an amazing blueprint for other companies that are trying to think about equity, sustainability, those types of kind of issues, the classic ESG structures of those topics all the time.
Yep.
I'm wondering if you guys ever get asked by other companies to tell them how you do it.
We do.
Yeah.
And some people even say, like, what if someone steals the model? And like, that's the best case scenario. If more people start kind of thinking this way, I think it would be good for everybody. So we've had a few people reach out. We're still in the process of figuring out as well. Even, from the equity standpoint, we've looked into ESOPs and co-ops, and how can we kind of spread the ownership outside of the two shareholders that have it now,
Right.
and looking at some of those alternative ownership structures as we grow kind of the promotional product side of the business, but also the mission side of the business as well, and start to kind of find some other business models that can feed into that mission as well.
So obviously, I think you've tapped into building a business that is needed, and certainly you outline kind of your obviously your personal story. And it's an amazing achievement as to where you've taken this business to date. But as you think about just the day-to-day of what you're doing, what makes you happy? What brings you the most, what brings you the most joy?
Yeah, well, the 20% of my week, so working with our interns, we've got 16 interns that are in our cohort this semester. So I've got 2 that I mentor personally. So I talk to them every Friday, and we go through, the different domains of life, and how to overcome, going to grad school or finding housing or all of those things. So that part's amazing. And talking to customers that get it. We because of our mission, we've always led mission first, and it's gotten us in the door with some really large customers, and it's really fun to watch them react to it. And when we tell our story and some of the stories of the kids, so the way the business community has reacted is awesome as well. So getting to work with like-minded businesses, and then, the standard business stuff, creating solutions for those customers, because, everyone is still in this weird position of how do we engage employees. So I think we've come up with some pretty cool solutions for that. So that's a lot of fun to work with the team on that, because that excites everybody as well.
And as you think about, let's say, the next year, the next couple of years, how do you see even the mission or the model evolving for doing good works?
Yeah, so continuing with that path of kind of looking at alternative ownership structures, but also getting back into communities. 2020 was supposed to be the year that we expanded into other communities. We have got a program called the Purpose Printery, which is a kind of workforce development with like small run t-shirts. So we've got some heat presses and little digital printers. So if we get an order for 10 shirts, we can bring some kids in and show them how to use a digital printer, how to take orders off a system, things like that. And that was going to be kind of our expansion model. So we could put a Purpose Printery in Austin or San Francisco or New York. So those buyers from those areas know that they're supporting the local community, but it's also not, the business isn't dependent on those locations. The dependent business is still run out of Southern California. So we can make some mistakes, we can learn, on the fly, we can kind of figure out what we're doing, but have a big community impact in those areas. And those locations would also be resource centers and mentoring centers. So that's the goal for when things start to come back and that vaccine gets out there, is to get back into those communities and kind of spread what we're doing to other areas.
Bring the Purpose printers to across the country.
Exactly.
I think that's great. Well, listen, Jordan, thank you so much for joining us today on Uncaged. We've been talking to Jordan. He's the co-founder and director of good at Doing Good Works, which is a certified B Corporation that provides resources and opportunities for young people aging out of foster care. Jordan, if people want to learn a little bit more about what you're working on, where would they find that information?
Go to our website, doinggoodworks.com. We're also on Instagram and LinkedIn. And then I've got a very good LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter as well. So you can reach me on both of those platforms. And then my email is jordanb@doinggoodworks.com. So feel free to reach out. And I love talking about this way and different ways that businesses can do good. So feel free to reach out.
Well, Jordan, we love what you're working on. We know how important it is. And it's so great that you've been able to join us today to talk about this. This is Uncaged, a show that gives a voice to amazing individuals from around the globe who are shaping the world today and mapping a path to tomorrow. Thank you so much for being on the show, Jordan.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it.